Have you ever felt just completely stuck? You know, like you're running the same old loops in your head, hitting the same walls, and you just can't seem to move forward? Well, you are definitely not alone. The good news is there's a way to get unstuck, and it's not about trying harder, it's about thinking differently. Today we're going to dive into the framework of breakthrough coaching, based on some amazing work by Marsha Reynolds to show you how to debug your own brain for change that actually lasts. Let's get into it.
This quote from the therapist Virginia Satir, wow, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures our weird human dilemma. Our brains, you see, are wired for safety, for predictability. So even if the situation we're in is making us miserable, at least it's a misery we know. The thought of stepping out into the unknown, even if it's for something way better, can feel absolutely terrifying. This right here, this preference for certainty, is the #1 reason we stay stuck in jobs, relationships, and habits that we know aren't serving us.
So why is it so incredibly hard to break free? Well, the answer lies deep inside our own minds. It's in a kind of background program that's running our lives on total autopilot.
Okay, think about it like this. Your brain has its own operating system, an OS. This mental OS is built from every single experience you've ever had, and its main job, its prime directive, is to keep you safe by making split-second judgments based on what's happened in the past. It literally defines your reality and who you think you are in any given moment. And it does this so fast and so efficiently that most of the time, you don't even notice it's happening.
But here's the catch. This default programming, as much as it's trying to help, is full of bugs. Your OS is always looking backward, right? So when you face a new challenge, its default is to predict failure, simply because it has no data for success yet. It absolutely hates uncertainty, so it avoids it at all costs. It runs on a script of shoulds that you probably inherited from family or teachers or society, and it wraps all of this up in what we could call personal myths, these stories that give you a false sense of security, but in reality are keeping you from ever growing.
So, if our own thinking is the problem, what do we do? The solution isn't to just go out and get more advice. No, it's to adopt a totally new mindset, the mindset of a coach.
The key difference really comes down to this. You see, traditional advising focuses on the external problem. It offers quick fixes. Coaching is radically different. It focuses on the person and on their internal thinking. A coach doesn't just hand you the answer. They act as a thought disruptor. They help you break through the old restrictive frames of your own stories. And that is why it creates real, lasting, long-term change. As the educator John Dewey said, the whole goal here is to think about your thinking. A coaching approach helps you become aware of your own mental OS. It yanks that background programming out from the shadows and into the foreground, so you can finally see the bugs for yourself and decide if you really want to keep running that old code.
All right, so how does this actually work? What do we do? Well, the process of debugging your mental OS, it starts with looking at 3 distinct but totally interconnected layers of your internal programming. The first layer is identity. This is your concept of self, that invisible rule book that tells you how to act in any situation. Are you the responsible one, the creative one? Maybe you're the one who never fails. This identity can be a huge source of strength, for sure, but it can also become a cage, you know? It can inhibit you from trying on new ways of being.
Next up, we have our social needs. We're all driven by the need for things like respect, a sense of control, recognition. These needs are what fuel our achievements, but they become major bugs in the system when we feel like they aren't being met. And that's when these powerful emotions like fear and resentment get triggered, and they can completely hijack our ability to think clearly. And the final layer is values. Oh man, so much of our internal conflict comes from this clash between the values we've inherited, the things we think we should want, and the genuine personal values that would actually lead to our own fulfillment. Trying to live a life based on someone else's values is always going to feel empty. Now, when you start to really poke around and debug these 3 layers, you create the conditions for something pretty incredible to happen, the breakthrough. That's the moment when the light bulb suddenly just flicks on.
And get this, the aha moment isn't just a metaphor. It's not just a feeling. Neuroscience research shows it's a real, measurable event happening inside your brain. It's a sudden burst of high-frequency energy as new neural pathways connect for the very first time, letting you see a solution or a perspective that was completely invisible to you just a second before. How cool is that?
But listen, here is something most people totally miss. An insight, that little spark, it just stays a fuzzy, half-formed idea until you say it out loud. The simple act of articulating what you've just realized is what makes it concrete. It takes that breakthrough from being a fleeting thought and it turns it into a powerful, usable tool for real change.
Which brings us to the final and honestly, the most important part. Because having an insight, that's just the beginning. The real work is turning that new awareness into a new reality.
So, installing your mental upgrade involves 4 key steps. First, you got to articulate that insight in one clear, powerful sense. Second, commit to specific actions. What are you going to do? How? When? Third, and this one is so key, embody the new identity. Don't just ask what you'll do, ask who you are becoming. And finally, prepare for obstacles. You have to acknowledge that change is not a straight line. So go ahead and create a plan B.
Ultimately, this whole process isn't about adding more tasks to your to-do list or just changing a behavior here and there. It's about a fundamental shift in your identity. Lasting change comes from transforming how you see yourself and what you believe is truly possible for you. The goal isn't just to do more, it's to be more.
You know, your old stories, that old programming, it feels safe, it feels comfortable, but it's a false sense of security, and it's the one thing keeping you from truly growing. So, the only question left to ask yourself is this: what new story are you ready to write?